Hi everybody, Josiah here, also known as Chilling Silence, and today I want to tell you a little bit about some of the history of DigiByte, namely DigiShield. So this was brought up because Jared Tate, the founder of DigiByte, recently reshared an older post that he had made on Reddit talking about DigiShield. Now this was happening back in the day, early 2014, around the time that it was launched. Back then, DigiByte had a 2.5 hour difficulty retargeting time. Now this was problematic because of multi-pool mining. So what would happen is miners would come along and they would take a huge amount of hash power and they would point it at the likes of DigiByte. They would mine for, well, it wouldn't quite be 2.5 hours, but they would get 2.5 hours worth of blocks until the difficulty went up, at which time they would then go and switch to, say, Dogecoin or Litecoin or something along those lines. Now that's obviously bad because then it leaves the normal people who are mining and supporting the network and keeping it secure left alone to mine blocks at a much slower pace because now there is, let's say, 8 times less hash power than expected. So that would mean that DigiByte's 1-minute blocks become 8-minute blocks. It actually got really bad for Dogecoin back in the day, like really, really bad, to the point it was almost a whole day between blocks. Now, DigiShield does this by adjusting the difficulty. It takes it up and down in real time to allow for a large amount of hash power to leave the network and also for a large amount of hash power to come into the network without getting that huge influx. Now it's really interesting because this is actually something that I suggested that Litecoin themselves implement just as Dogecoin have implemented. So originally back in 2014, the DigiByte developers helped the Dogecoin devs to get it implemented into Dogecoin because Dogecoin were having a whole lot of problems. It's really interesting. You can go through the Dogecoin GitHub history and see them talking about it, looking at trying different things. I think they were also looking at the likes of Komodo Gravity Well, but in the end, after discussions with DigiByte and the DigiByte developers, they ended up implementing DigiShield. Now this is something that I've also recommended over here that Litecoin subsequently implement. I've also put towards it the first part of the code needed for them to do this, and this would also help them with their block timings, increasing the stability of it. And this is a great thing, obviously, because more regular block timing means a more consistent project overall. It means people can more reliably rely on the block timing for payments and the likes as well. So there's a lot of upsides to it being more steady rather than one up here and then another block taking longer and another block taking less time and so on and so forth. It's that reliability that DigiShield gives. So when we look at the likes of the way that multi-shield, for example, which is what we're using now, an updated version of DigiShield for our multi-algorithm in DigiByte, the block times basically were within, I think it was 0.5% of what we would have expected it to be. So, I mean, that's pretty good. I wrote it in here. It's a 1% deviation. So DigiByte with our multi-shield, and subsequently obviously with DigiShield, is very reliable with the block timings overall, which is great to see. So this is something that I've obviously put to the Litecoin developers and to the Litecoin community as a whole. I've included some of the code into it as well, so that it's a kind of enough to get them kickstarted. Unfortunately, I'm not a developer, but hopefully this is interesting both to them and also to you, potentially learning a little bit more about DigiShield in the history. So back here, I'm not too sure if they actually mentioned it. I read this yesterday. Anyway, they actually ended up, the Dogecoin developers were working with the DigiByte developers. It was the DigiByte developers that helped Dogecoin to implement this. Now, DigiShield in and of itself directly is still used in everything from Bitcoin Cash through to Zcash. I think it's actually still in BSV as well because they came from BCH. It's in Monacoin, it's in Ubic, it's in a bunch of other projects because it's really good. Like it works really, really well. So anyway, that's just a little bit of history into DigiShield and some of the development there. What I also want to do, actually, before we get started, I'll take a little sip here from my DigiByte cup. So thank you to Fingies at Zero Risk, Zero Reward. He put that up for a couple of days, and I believe he was giving the the proceeds from these DigiByte cups that he had for a limited time to, I'm not too sure if it was the DigiByte Awareness Team or the DigiByte Unlimited Network. But yeah, so that's arrived in the mail. Thank you for that. I purchased that a week or two ago, and it's great to have it here. Anyway, so speaking of the DigiByte Awareness Team, Luke has written an interesting article specifically around outreach and around who it is that you can talk with and who should we be, not so much targeting sounds kind of the wrong word, but you know what I mean. Who should we be looking to approach about DigiByte and to help spread awareness? Now, he mentions down here some really interesting things. I think he says, yeah, those 99%, we need to embrace rejection. We need to embrace these difficult conversations. We need to potentially embrace ridicule or resistance to change and ignorance and break through to the other side and reach those 99%. Just up here, he says, we forget that 99% of the world isn't yet on board with blockchain technology and some of these ideas and concepts that seem so obvious to us. Now, I actually want to improve on that just a little bit because this is something that I've been a big proponent of previously, especially when it comes to the likes of crypto, Twitter, and things. All too often we are effectively preaching to the choir, and it's kind of like convincing somebody that a Presbyterian church is going to be better than a Baptist church, for example. They're both churches at the end of the day, and they're both involved in the same kind of thing, and at the end of the day, they've both got relatively the same sort of goals. What we need to be doing is trying to help other people that are outside of the church choir, as it were. Now, he mentions there 99%. I would actually argue that it's not even 1% of the world that are already involved in cryptocurrency. Now, my reasoning behind this is if you take a look here, I found it says 12 graphs that show just how early cryptocurrency adoption really is. Now, this was in the middle of 2018, and there was 24 million Bitcoin wallet addresses in total. Now, the interesting thing is I personally contribute around about a dozen and a half to that. If you use Bitcoin, say for example you've gone and purchased it, what you would often do is, let's say you've gone and received it from an exchange. Let's say you purchased it through the likes of Vertbase, and they've gone and sent it to you directly, so you've got one wallet address now. What happens if you then send it on to somebody else and you then receive part of the change? So let's say I bought 0.1 of a Bitcoin and I need to pay you 0.05 of a Bitcoin. What would happen is I would send you 0.05 and I would get back 0.05 myself in a change address. This still counts as an address. So there is only 24 million Bitcoin wallet addresses in total. I've used a bunch of them. I've tried out a bunch of different wallets. I've used the core wallet myself on 3 different computers. I've used Coinomi. I've used their Bread wallet. I've also used a couple of different addresses in a couple of different exchanges. So I've probably contributed a lot to that myself. So the fact that they're saying that in 2018 there was 24 million unique addresses, that's not very much. If you look at, what's the world population at here? 7.726 billion. We're at something like 0.03% of the world has actually ever used Bitcoin, if that. And that's probably being quite a stretch. So anyway, what I want to do is not bring this up as a negative, but to bring it up as a positive. There is so much room for growth in this space. So much more room for people to learn about cryptocurrencies, to learn about Bitcoin, to learn about DigiByte, to learn about the history with Dogecoin that we've had and how we've helped them out. There are so many cool ways that we can get involved and help out. And this particular article where he talks about reaching out to non-crypto specific podcasts and the likes, or non-blockchain projects, to actually talk to people who've never really dove into blockchain or cryptocurrency before, I think is actually really quite cool. And so I want to applaud that. I applaud the initiative, and I would also encourage you watching to get involved in that kind of a way as well. Lastly, I also promised I would talk a little bit about some of the feedback that I'd got on Twitter and on YouTube. Super fascinating to hear how a lot of people found out about DigiByte. What really surprised me was the number of people that actually heard about it through the likes of John McAfee and things, or when it was having a really good day on the likes of Bittrex, and it would show up at the top like #1 traded project for the day. What I was more concerned would happen is people would find out about it and would basically get upset, because if you look at the likes of John McAfee's crypto project of the day that he was doing, so he'd actually been talking with DigiByte and some of us from here for a little while. He was a big fan of the project, and DigiByte was the second project of the day that he was going to be talking about. Now, back when we were actually discussing it with him originally, there was no mention of there being like an ongoing project of the day sort of thing. It was more just he was a big fan of it, he liked what we stood for and the likes. But anyway, so when that happened though, I still personally recall I was awake at 1:30 in the morning, I was getting ready to go to bed, and all of a sudden, somebody starts messaging in the Telegram chats, and they're like, "Oh, look, what's happening with the price? Why has it gone up? It's doubled in the last 10 minutes." And I was like, that can't be right. Why? What's going on there? Anyway, long story short, the price went up and up and up, and then it came back down over the following 24 hours. It was effectively a pump and dump. Was it orchestrated by John McAfee? Probably not. I'm not too sure he realized originally back then what was going on. But anyway, a lot of people actually found out about DigiByte through that. And I thought that was quite interesting, because all of the responses that I had were positive responses about it, about people being brought into it for that. Now, I'm not saying that people should go and try and orchestrate any sort of pump and dump as a crypto awareness. I think that's a shitty idea. Don't do it at all. People always end up losing out when it comes to that kind of thing. And I think that's terrible. I'm not in it for that sort of reason. But at the same time, I wanted to say that it was fascinating that people found out about it through that kind of thing. One of the other things that I thought was really quite interesting was just how many people found out about it on accident. It was actually really quite interesting as well. Because a lot of people were simply going through the likes of CoinMarketCap and decided to venture out of the top 10 projects. Interesting little tidbit as well for history, DigiByte was actually in the top 10 for a couple of days back in 2017. So really interesting there. A lot of people found out about it through the DigiByte gaming initiatives that we had back in the day, where you could mine and you could play games and get rewarded for playing those games. And so that whole gaming scene back in the day encouraged people to download the full DigiByte core wallet. That's why back in the day we had 200,000 downloads of the DigiByte core wallet, because people would download the core wallet because mobile wasn't available. I mean, it was available, but it just wasn't very good. And that's why we went and we refreshed the mobile offerings later on. So a couple of interesting things like that, just about how people heard from it. But the most common one of all was through word of mouth. And I actually thought that was really quite cool, because it goes to show a lot about the DigiByte community and about us looking out for other people and helping them out. And so I want to take this opportunity to thank people, especially the likes of the DigiByte Awareness Team, DigiByte Unlimited, or even just people who go about the general day and talk with other people about it. Everybody that I know who's been involved and got involved with DigiByte, that I know from the real world, like my day-to-day life, not through the internet, it's probably a better way of wording it, but people that I meet from work or from my church or from social outings and things, they know about DigiByte because I took the time to have a chat with them about it and to explain to them about it. So that's the kind of thing. I think word of mouth, and I think talking with people and that one-on-one direct contact and direct communication is something that we really excel at. And I think it's something that we can excel further at. So I want to encourage you, find somebody who's not involved with cryptocurrency, have a chat with them today about it. Just say to them, hey, look, have you heard about the potentially negative interest rates going on? Have you heard about a solution with the likes of Bitcoin and DigiByte? Talk with them about it. Maybe you want to talk with them about things like digi-assets, or maybe you want to talk with them about cybersecurity. That's a big one and a really big step in the door, foot in the door there when it comes to talking about blockchain projects. Everybody's concerned about cybersecurity. Even my non-technical mother is still concerned about cybersecurity. And so recently she actually had her Netflix account not hacked, but it was as a result of a previous hack where somebody had found her username and password, or her email address and her password. And so all of a sudden, being in New Zealand, she's getting messages from Netflix to say, hey, we've noticed you've just signed in from India. We've noticed you've just signed in from the Ukraine. We've noticed that you've just signed in from Argentina. And she's kind of going, why are 3 people signing in to my Netflix account? She sends me a message. We get talking a little bit about her reusing passwords. This is a perfect opportunity to talk about DigiID and about using the Atom ID plugin. Anyway, so I want to encourage you, find one person today, talk with them about it, talk with them about DigiByte, see if you can help improve somebody's life through that in a very direct way. And I want to encourage you. I want to say thank you for all the work that people do in that area, because that is the best way to reach people and to help them to learn more about blockchain and about DigiByte. Anyway, so I hope this, although it's been kind of longer, I hope this has been interesting for you in terms of learning more about the history of DigiByte and about how people can come to know about it, a little bit about the history of DigiShield there, and why it was that I proposed it to Litecoin as well. If you do have any questions, feel free to sing out in the comment section below. I'm aware this has gone on a bit longer than normal. Most of them are sort of 3 to 5 minutes, but if you have enjoyed it, please consider giving this a like, subscribe. I try to do these every day, so today's number 51, and yeah, you can always reach me on Twitter. I'm at DGB_chilling. Otherwise, I'll talk to you in the next video. I'll see you tomorrow. Cheers.